I'd like to welcome you if you're new to the channel. I'm Danny with Escape Power Sports, and today we're working on something a little different. It ain't a Polaris, and it ain't a Can-Am. Today we're working on something called a Honda Foreman. And in this video, I want to share with y'all the step-by-step procedure I like to use to change the oil and oil filter in a Honda ATV, whether it be an 02 all the way up to a fancy 2012 year model. Now, if you follow this channel, you could probably guess by the Honda badges all over these bikes that these aren't actually my ATVs. But they are pretty damn special to me, particularly this 02 Honda Foreman 450 ES. This bike is probably the genesis, no, not probably, this bike is the genesis, the origin. Really, my deepest roots and passion for ATVs comes from this bike coming into my life in 02. And if this bike hadn't found its way into my life way back in 2002, I'm not sure Escape Power Sports would exist today. Now, maybe I'll talk a little more about that later on, but changing the oil and filter on these bikes ain't nothing but a quick and easy 3-beer job, so let's get right into it.
So I like to get every oil change started by warming up the bike for a few minutes on a level surface. Next, the Honda book says we need to remove the oil filler cap you can see on the driver's side of the bike here. And if you got one of these fancy newer models, you might need to remove the seat by pulling the tab up on the rear of the cushion and yank that driver's side engine cover to get access to that oil filler cap. No tools are required for this, just pop that panel out of the 5 rubber grommets to get full access to remove this oil filler cap. Then I just grab my drain bucket and 17mm socket and crawl under the bike to remove the 17mm drain bolt. It ain't a bad idea to bring a few shop towels with you under the bike. So while the oil's draining out, it's time for us to locate the oil filter with its 3 8mm bolts towards the front of the passenger side of the engine here. And again, on the newer models, you'll need to remove the passenger side panel to see that oil filter. Can you see it down there? Let's have our computer wizards enhance that image. Enhance it again. There it is, with its 3 8mm bolts. So now that we got eyes on it, we can slide our drain bucket under the filter housing and remove these 3 oil filter cover bolts with the 8mm socket. And I like these cheap magnetic bends to help keep me from losing these critical oil filter bolts. And with the bolts out, we can remove the cover and pull that old filter out. And the little spring that sits in there behind it may or may not come out with the filter, which is fine. What's important is that we don't lose this little spring and that we do set the spring back there in the middle of the housing so it ends up behind our new filter. And you can see that little spring tried to jump out on me, but I just set her back where she goes. And then we also got a little O-ring up there. Honda book says we need to check it. In this case, since I don't know when the next time I'll see this bike is, I'm gonna just go ahead and replace it for him. He brought the parts anyhow. A small cheap pick is great for removing this tiny O-ring if you do decide to replace yours. There she comes. And I like to lube the new one with a little bit of oil before we set her in there for a good seal. Nice. Now the Honda book says we also need to inspect the larger O-ring that sits on the filter housing, but I like to just replace it in the same manner after cleaning the cover with some shop towels. Here, much shinier. And same deal, we'll lube our new O-ring with just a dab of Earl before we slide it back on there. Nice. And this is how our old filter came out, with the little rubber boot part facing outwards, and Honda won't let you mess it up. They have the outside place this towards the filter cover labeled actually on the filter, so that's pretty cool of Honda to do that. Anyhow, it'll just pop right onto our cover here. Pretty good. We'll make sure our spring's in place and set it back, and then we'll also want to make sure this little part that covers that gasket is next to that bolt, if you know what I mean. And we'll just slide her in there like so. And yeah, that with a lubed O-ring, that fits pretty nice. We'll just snug her back up. Then I just reinstalled the 3 8mm bolts. The torque specs for these tiny bolts on this machine is only 10 Newton meters or 7 foot-pounds. But when a torque wrench really ain't all that handy, I'll just snug them up by choking up on the head of a small ratchet so I don't over-tighten them, which could tear our O-rings and cause a leak. Should be good. With our oil filter replaced, it's time to clean and inspect the drain plug and its seal-in little crush washer. And I chose to replace the crush washer before carefully threading the drain plug in by hand. And it's very important that the drain plug threads in smoothly and easily by hand, and that we don't cross thread it, or worse, strip the crankcase. Torque specs for the drain plug are 25 Newton meters or 18 foot-pounds. But again, if a torque wrench ain't in the cards for today, I just get away with tightening up the drain plug by hand before choking up on the ratchet for that last eighth to quarter turn or so, or really just until she's nice and snug. Shit, now it's time to just grab a funnel and add 2.2 quarts to our driver's side filler hole of the oil recommended to you by your local Honda dealer for your machine and riding environment. And in this crankcase, I'm adding 2.2 quarts of Honda's GN4 SAE 10W40 SJ 4-stroke motorcycle oil. So the Honda book says to check the oil. We remove the dipstick and wipe it off, and we don't have to screw it in to check it. We just set it in there. And as you can see, we're a little bit high, but that is to be expected. Now let's put this back in there and crank her up, and I bet you that goes down to right where it should be. I'm trying to get it to focus for you. I bet you that goes down right to where it should be once the oil gets a chance to circulate all the way through the crankcase. Anyhow, let's put it back in and crank her up. And actually, before I crank her up, I like to spray the oil filter and drain plug areas with some degreaser and hose off the mess to make checking for leaks easier. And after she's run for about 60 seconds, now it's time to shut her off and check the oil level again, and add some oil if necessary to get in the middle of that safe range.
Alright, that's done.
Real quick, you might notice the oil change indicator is still on the dash if your screen ain't busted like mine. So to reset it, simply hold the odometer and reset buttons on the bottom left of the display for 2 seconds, and it should disappear. So I really hope you found this video helpful when it comes time to change the oil on your Honda Foreman. And if you did, do me a quick favor and give the video a thumbs up. And as always, if I missed anything or you have any thoughts or suggestions on how I can improve these videos, or really any comments on this Honda oil change topic in general, please leave a comment in the section below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you remember at the beginning of the video when I mentioned these bikes are kind of special to me, well, this one in particular, because you see this four-wheeler is actually my old man's bike, so I really want to just take a minute and say thanks, Dad, for letting me ride this thing growing up and put, I don't know, at least 2,000 of the 7,000 miles it's got on it at full throttle, and teaching me how to hunt and fish and all the cool shit like that. I really appreciate it, probably more than you'll ever know, so thanks. So really, thanks, man. And I'd also really like to thank the over 1,000 of you guys who found some of the how-to content on this channel and decided to subscribe. And for those of y'all who are following along, those are beers number 139, 140, and 141 on our way to finishing the Escape Powersports 1,000 Beer Challenge. So I'd really like to encourage you, if you're new here, to subscribe so you don't miss any of the rest of the ATV maintenance videos we'll be putting out over the course of those 1,000 beers. I'd like to welcome you if you're new to the channel. I'm Danny with Escape Powersports. I really want to thank y'all for watching, and as always, we'll see y'all on the trails.